a public hearing today on vacating County Road 817. That is on the agenda today, but the purpose of this meeting this morning is to make sure we hear from the public here on if there's any objections, corrections, complaints, anything on this public road. And we'll talk about that at some point. It's item number 12 on the agenda, and we'll discuss that at the regular meeting. So we'll wait a few minutes to see if there's anybody that comes in, and whether it's Mr. Smith or anyone else that's supposed to come in or should come in. And
Mr. Chairman, the meeting was originally scheduled for 8 o'clock, and there ain't nobody here, so you really have waited a few minutes. But
Sorry.
you know what I mean? It's pretty obvious nobody's gonna be here.
we'll wait just a little bit
But you're the
longer
chairman.
just to make sure, because we did get the Mrs. Rieta down here. She thought it was canceled, so she was told it was canceled. Appreciate her coming down.
Well, thank you, guys.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure if this is a place to ask it since this is a public hearing or when we go to the resolution, but I'm just curious because I haven't, other than the landowner that's requesting the vacation, I haven't heard if the surrounding landowners, what their feedback was, or was there any response to this? Because in the vacation policies or procedures, the surrounding landowners have to be contacted, don't they?
Mr. Smith did contact all the surrounding landowners. I do know this. And he talked to them all, he sent letters to them, and there was no opposition. Because he actually gave anybody that kind of joined, he said he'd give them access. So they agreed to that.
And Commissioner Roberts correct, Mr. Smith did actually provide me the verification that he did that.
And actually, that's the purpose of this meeting, is to give those landowners the opportunity to yea or nay on this particular document.
Because in the procedure, we had to formulate a committee, right, that went out and evaluated it. Do we know who the members of that committee were?
Yeah, when I was the interim county manager for the 2 or 3 months, I appointed Jonah, Robert, and Amanda Cisneros to go out there to go look at it. And the reason I done that, I had talked to, just for your knowledge, I had talked to the Raton City manager, Mr. Berry, and I asked him if he had ever vacated property for the city, and he told me yes. And I said, what was the procedure before I call our attorney? And he told me that he's picked like an engineer, a couple other people from the city. They've gone out there and looked at it to make sure, number one, that they're not closing off an access to utilities, such as water or sewer or electrical, and they go out there and look at it and for that purpose. And they done that. I never got a report back. I guess I didn't ask them for a report, but they said everything was clear. And but I did send Jonah, Robert, and Amanda up there to look at it, because that's what Gina, our attorney, had told me to do along with the city manager. So they done that. And I believe that there was only one rancher out there that was against it, and then he came back and told you, I think Robert, he told you there was something different there.
Yeah, it was Mr. Kennedy from Des Moines, and he actually had the wrong road confused of what we was going to close. He was the only one that voiced opposition to this. And once I told him where this road was, he said he was fine with it. He had it confused.
And I think if you look at item number 12 on the regular agenda that we're gonna have today, the actual resolution, I think it kind of spells out what the procedure is, I believe, and what is supposed to be done in follow, how do you follow the directions in vacating a piece of property like that. So it's a pretty thick, and I believe that we'll talk about that in the regular meeting, but it looks like, it's quoting the state statute here a couple of times. And it gives a whole bunch of definitions, but we'll talk about that. But to answer your question, Commissioner, yes, there was a group that was sent out there. If you you think that we need to send a different group, a group that's not related to the county in any way, that might be hard to do, but we can do that also. Get 3 different people from the county to go look at it, go look at the road.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while since I think I went over this when I first became the commissioner with Robert. But it seems to me that my recollection is anyhow that the statute calls for a specific type of people to be on that committee. And they're actually, I know one of them had to be a person that was not affected by the closure at all. And then there were other ones that, so there actually is statute that describes how this is supposed to happen. And I guess that would be my only concern. I just want to make sure we're following the rules.
Yeah, and I don't think we're there yet, so I guess that's the whole purpose that in passing this resolution in our regular meeting today is to get that established, and then we'll move on with whatever we have to do according to the statute to get that group and do it right. We just want to make sure we do it right, so we can do that.
And Commissioner, that's exactly what we're doing, and you are correct on that. I think the term is freeholder, that has to be sent out, but we do have a resolution. Staff has informed me that we've never formally accepted that resolution, so that's part of what we're doing today. Basically, we're putting this situation back on the tracks.
Okay.
And before we close this meeting out, I have noticed, sir, you just walked in and we're having the actual meeting for a public hearing for the possible closure of a road belonging to Mr. Smith, who was a ranch owner. Did you want to say something?
Oh, my name is Jim Kowalski. I'm Property Owners Association President for Green Valley Subdivision over by Black Lake, and I was just curious about this process of county road vacation.
All right, good. Well, you came at
You
the right
know,
time.
the only question I have, and I know that there's an agreement between the landowners, but is there something that has to be in writing? Because say those adjacent landowners, say they sell later and they don't have, it might be a gentleman's agreement between the current landowners, but if that sale ever goes to those adjacent lands, I mean, then that agreement might be voided if there's not something in writing that gives them access to that property. And I don't know if that's something that needs to be in the deeds itself, a deeded access to that property or not. It's just.
I believe he sent and got letters back from all the adjacent landowners.
But what I'm saying is what happens if those adjacent landowners sell later, and then all of a sudden that access isn't given to the new owners of that property?
It's like an easement.
Yeah.
So my question on that is really, what's the county's responsibility? Because the county's, right now, we have responsibility for that road. And if we're vacating it, we're basically saying we're no longer responsible for that road, and the road goes back to the property owners. And I don't know that the county has responsibility to assure agreements between the other property owners. I mean, it might be a good thing to do, and it might be great advice for the property owners, right? To make sure that, and if they don't have that in agreement, then they need to come to the commission and say, hold up, don't approve this yet because we need to get this in writing. I agree with you wholeheartedly. That'd be the smart thing to do, because we all, this county has been built on handshake issues, and probably 90% of them are fine, but there's that 10% that goes south. And, I always think having a contract, an agreement, something documented is the best way to do it. And handshake agreements generally aren't. But I guess my question is, and I don't know the answer, is what is the responsibility of the county? Where does our responsibility start and end?
I think we need to find that out. I think Monty can probably give you a call and see exactly what the state statute says, what we have to do who this group of three need to be, and do we need any documentation from the neighboring ranchers? I think these are all good points to bring up, because when I first became commissioner almost 8 years ago, I went out on the county roads with Robert. And we drove actually on many roads up to the rancher's front door. And I was like, the county road goes up to the front door here? And he said, yes. And I was like, why? So we've graded roads all the way up to the front door into their property. And he told me, he said, well, as long as he's been there, it was done on a handshake. That you grade my road all the way to my front door. Now, there's a lot of roads out there. And Si, you're gonna be taking my spot here. And that's one of the things I think, to open your eyes up. Not only do we have a lot of county roads, and the main ones that we need to take care of, well, first of all, are the school bus routes, as you know. But secondary, all the other roads, but there's a lot of roads that go right up to the rancher's house. And I was like shocked to see that. Because I want to see exactly where these roads are, and there's nothing we can do about them. I think we set a precedence with those particular roads. I'm not saying we set a precedence or a practice on any other roads in the future, because I don't think we should. But I think that once we've done that for many years, we have to continue doing that. And you're right, Commissioner. I think documentation has to be of some sort in there, because, and I think, I'm asking Monty to check with that, because I don't want to. I think that's a good issue, that's being brought up here. What if the landowner changes, as you said, and that new landowner wants the county, that road open back up? Of course, I guess you can go back and look at it and see whether or not, it's up to par according to, the county looks at as far as the width, the amount of material that's on there, and whether or not there's any culverts that need to be put on that particular road. We're not responsible for that, the landowner is, if they want us to grade that road. That's the position that this county has taken for years and years. And I see Robert shaking his head, yes. So, because we deal with a lot of roads. One of the main issues, two issues I think as a commissioner coming in, Si, is roads, trash, are the two main issues that I see all the time. Mainly trash and roads. I probably should put trash first, because we have a lot of issues, especially up in the Eagle Nest, Angel Fire area. We have some major problems with the trash in that area with the dumpsters. So that's something you're gonna have to look at it, and, as a commissioner, I know that's not your area, that's Commissioner Weir's area, but I think you're gonna have to collectively work together with the other commissioners about that. And I think they've already started that. County manager has already done that, so is there any other questions on that? We're gonna do whatever we can legally and to the best of our ability to make sure, with the knowledge of our county attorney, to make sure that we do this right. And because I'm sure this issue is not going to be the final issue, because we had one other one. We found out that other road here in town doesn't belong to the county. I checked with Joe a couple of weeks ago, and I found out that other piece of property that I thought could get vacated as a county road, comes to find out that it's not a county road. It doesn't belong, it must have belonged to the association. And, those two landowners that adjoin that 50-foot by 150-foot piece of land there, they can do whatever they want with it, because it doesn't belong to the county. Because they went way back and checked the records, and Rieta also helped them, and they can't find that it belongs to the county. So, as I asked Joe from the assessor's office, to let that landowner know, both landowners know that, they want to spend the 25 feet each and maintain it and gravel it, go for it. Put a fence up if that's what they're going to do, because it doesn't belong to the county. It's what I finally found out. So he told me that he would be speaking with those landowners last week, and I'm hoping he did. I haven't checked with him, but anyway, I ran it off enough, and I think we all have. So do you have any other comments or questions?
My only other comment is just a general one for the public. They're not really here, but so, there are very specific rules. Like for us to take a road on, it's not our policy. It's actually statute and what the condition of a road has to be in order for us to even really consider taking it on.
That's right.
And I don't think that's always been followed in the past. I think it has in the recent past, but not the distant past. I think there were a lot of handshake deals for road coverage. But the issue is, once the county maintains a road for 10 years, whether it's in documentation or not, then legally we have what's called a prescriptive easement. And all of a sudden we do have responsibility, even if that is a 2-track instead of a road. Once we do it for 10 years, we're stuck with it. And you have to go through the vacating process, even if there's no record of the county owning the land. So then it's up to the county to try and prove or determine whether we have maintained that road for the prior 10 years. So that's where I think there's a lot of confusion, and I think the best way to, in the future, to alleviate that confusion is simply by following the rules. We only take on roads that meet the specs that are presented to the commission, and the commission in public setting accept that road. And, it doesn't seem fair, because I think there's a lot of roads we have under the responsibility of the county that don't meet specs, never did meet specs. And in some cases, these roads are servicing a single landowner. I mean, we literally have miles of roads that will go out and service a single landowner when it's their land on both sides of the road. That doesn't seem right to me, but that's the past. And again, going forward, I think we just need to rigidly follow the rules.
I agree. Commissioner?
Yeah, I think that resolution pretty much spells that out, and I think this is a good step in the process, is this resolution that'll certainly pave the way, or at least let people know what they need to do in order for vacation.
I agree. Any other comments to this, sir?
I just have a question. I live on a road that is owned by the county and was maintained by the county, I believe, and still is, and part of it became unmaintained. I'm not sure how. Is there a way to figure out what that process was that part of its B39 became an unmaintained section years ago? I know we've met with Robert and seen what it might take to get it back in the county, but the property itself is owned by the county. There's a 1,500-foot stretch of county road. It's just a loop. Part of the loop is maintained, part of it isn't. And it might have been an issue years ago, but there's different people that own the properties in the subdivision. There's many people there. There's special needs people. And I just didn't know, I think I know the process to get a county road accepted, but what if it was already accepted? I'm just trying to figure out why it was deemed unmaintained for 2/3 of it.
Well, if it, to my knowledge, which again is not, probably legal counsel would be the best to answer that question, but to my knowledge, if the county accepted a road or we had a prescriptive easement, which means we maintained it for a period of 10 consecutive years, the only way for the county to stop its responsibility of that road is to go through a vacating process, which is what we're doing here. The question is that the case? Was it maintained for 10 years? And was it accepted by the county as a road? I think the best indicator of that would be, we're required by the state, by DOT, to submit annually a list of the roads that we maintain. So the question is, was that portion of the road ever on that list? And when, if it's so, when was it on that list and when did it come off would be an indicator of the time frame. And then you need to go look and see if during that time period there was a process of vacating that road that was followed. And again, the question is, You have to maintain it for 10 years for it to be consecutive years for it to be a prescriptive easement. Or this commission has to accept the road, the maintenance of the road. And it has to meet certain conditions for us to be able to even consider it. The commission, technically, the way I understand it and have read the rules, the commission cannot accept a road that does not meet these certain conditions, which is basically the depth of material, the width of the road, the pitch of the road is a big deal, and the size of the culverts.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'm going to close this public hearing. Now, 8:30. We will be doing the next